We've been working in this module all about linear equations, and we've learned how to graph lines, linear equations. And so far in this module, I've given you the equation up front, and from that equation, you have either found the slope, the intercepts, you've plotted points, and graphed the line. In this last module, Module D, we're going to go backwards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some clues, and from those clues, you're going to write the equation of the line. The most important thing we got to use in this module is the facts when we started the first module, 13a. You know by looking at an equation what type of line it is by the variable you see. We have already discussed that if the equation has the letter X in it, it would be a vertical line. If the equation has the letter Y in it, it will be a horizontal line. And if the equation has both an X and a Y, it's always going to be a diagonal line. So what we're going to do today in this module is go backwards. I want you to pretend like you're Sherlock Holmes, a detective. I'm going to give you two clues. And for the two clues I give you, I first want you to decide, if you take those two clues, what type of line would it be? Horizontal, vertical, or diagonal? Once you make that decision, then we can write the equation. We can answer the question. Okay, let's go to the class notes. So if you look here in the class notes, it says the directions are going to be for this whole section, write an equation of a line. You cannot write an equation of a line until you know for sure what type of line it is. And to know what type of line it is means you have to know if it's going to be horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. So if you look, we already discussed this. If it's a horizontal line, you're going to write the equation with the letter Y. Y always goes with a horizontal line. If it's a vertical line, you're going to use the letter X. And if it's a diagonal line, you're going to have both variables, X and Y, in your equation. So, the goal of this section is to write an equation. An equation has an equal symbol. It has letters and numbers. You will know which equation you're writing based on the clues. All right, so now let's go up to the whiteboard and see what we can do here. Okay, guys, I have four clues, four sets of clues up here. And what I want you to do is write the equation of the line. Now, what I also put up here is graph paper. Because if you understand this, it's very visual. You're going to take my clues I give you, you're going to look at them on the graph paper, and decide which type of line those clues make. Once you know what type of line we're going to make, then to write the equation is easy. If it's a horizontal line, the equation is always going to be Y equals, and we're going to put a number behind it. If the clues are for a vertical line, the equation is going to be X equals with a number behind it. And if it's a diagonal line, then we're going to have to write the equation, whether the line goes up or down, Y equals mx plus b, which means we're going to know m the slope and b the y-intercept. All right, let's look at our first one. So here are my clues. M equals 0, 3, negative 4. Well, I know you all know that this is a point. So let's go to the graph and plot this point. 3, negative 4 would be that point in quadrant 4. Is knowing just one point enough to draw a line? No, it's not. Through this point, I could draw a horizontal line, a vertical line, or a diagonal line. That is why you'll see in this section, you're always given two clues. Just knowing a point is not enough to decide which line I want you to draw. So the next clue is m equals 0. Well, we've discussed this already. M is a variable that stands for what word? It stands for slope. Slope is the movement of the line. So who remembers from Module 13C, if the slope is 0, how does that tell you the line is moving? Is the line going up? No. That would be a positive number for slope. Is the line going down? No. That would be a negative number for slope. We said in Module 13C, if the slope is 0, the line stays steady. And to draw a steady line would be drawing this, a horizontal line. Okay? Now, the question didn't ask me to draw the picture. The question, everything today says write an equation. Well, an equation has to have an equal sign. To write an equation of a horizontal line, well, everybody look at your picture. What axis do you touch? You touch the y-axis. That's why the equation of a horizontal line has the letter y in it. Now you need a number. Well, look at your picture. If you look at your horizontal line, you're touching the y-axis at the number -4. Believe it or not, this is what they want for an answer. They want you to come up with the equation, the name of that line. And that's what you did. Y equals -4 would be the picture of this line. So we went backwards today. In the other module, I would give you the equation, you would draw the picture. We're drawing the picture first to come up with the equation. All right, let's go to the next one. The next one, well, I have the same point. I have 3, -4. All right, so let me erase this. All right. So here's that same point, 3, -4. So I gave you the same point. What I did was change this clue, detectives. This clue says M. M stands for slope. Slope is how the line moves. Now it says the slope is undefined. Now let's think a minute. We've already discussed this. What type of line has slope that's undefined? Can it go up? Nope, the slope would be a positive number. Can it go down? Nope, the slope would be a negative number. Would it go across? Nope, that's staying steady. The slope is 0. The only line that's left that has a slope that's undefined is a vertical line. And remember, we told you that's a memorized fact. So we know when the slope is undefined, we're going to draw a vertical line. So through this point, we are going to draw a vertical line. Now, the directions don't ask for you to draw a picture. The directions ask you to name this line. Write its equation. Well, look at it. This line touches the x-axis. That's why every time we talk about a vertical line, we use the letter x. And it touches the x-axis as +3. And that's your answer. That is your equation. Now, did you really need to draw a picture? No. If you're quick, you could have looked at this and said, okay, slope is 0. That's a horizontal line. A horizontal line is always y equals a number. There's my y number. Slope is undefined. That's always a vertical line. To write an equation of a vertical line is x equals a number. There's my x number. I like drawing the pictures because it makes sense. It brings it to life. All right, let's look at the third clue. Write an equation of a line that is parallel to x equals 4 that passes through the point -1, 3. That's a lot of words. So again, let's break it down and make sense out of it. The best way I know to make sense out of it is to go to graph paper. I know that this is a point. Points I can plot. So I'm going to take this point, -1, 3, and plot it. To the left 1, up 3. Again, plotting one point is not enough to draw a line. I could draw a horizontal line, a vertical line, or a diagonal. I need some more clues. So my second clue says parallel to x equals 4. Well, I know parallel means they will not touch. But what the heck is an x equals 4? Is that a point? No, because a point is written like this as an ordered pair with an x and y value. This is an equation. It has an equal sign. And from day 1 in this module, we talked about it. Every equation is a line. If this equation has an x in it, this is a vertical line. So now I'm going to go to my graph paper and draw a picture of this. So I would go to the x-axis, to the number 4, plot a point, and draw my vertical line. Now, I haven't answered the question yet. All I've done is take my 2 clues and put them on paper so I can see it. So let me read this again. Write an equation of a line that is parallel to x equals 4. Well, here's x equals 4. Well, something parallel to it would be over here to the left, over here to the right. But it would also be a vertical line. Do you agree with that? If this is vertical, to be parallel, I'd also have to be vertical. Not only do I have to be parallel to it, I have to go through the point negative 1, 3, which means here's that point. They want you to draw this new line through that point. Now, does my picture I drew fit the 2 clues? Does my new line, is it parallel to this line? Yes, it is. It's parallel to x equals 4. Does it pass through the point negative 1, 3? Sure it does. Now, what they want for an answer is the name of this line. You've already know the equation for this one. It was x equals 4. It was given. I want the equation of this new line. This line that is parallel to x equals 4, but passes through that point. Well, it's also a vertical line. So you use the letter x equals, and if you look at the picture, it touches at negative 1. And that would be your answer. The equation of the line that is parallel to x equals 4, that passes through this point, negative 1, 3, would be the equation x equals negative 1. Now, did you need to draw the picture? No, you didn't, but it helps me. You could have looked at this and said, well, if this is a vertical line and I'm supposed to be parallel, I also have to be a vertical line. To be a vertical line, I always use the letter x, and my x number here is negative 1. So that's how I get the equation. All right, well, let's try one more easy one. So let me erase these clues. All right, and let's look at the next one. I want to write an equation of a line that is perpendicular to x equals 4, passing through the point negative 1, 3. Again, I've given you 2 clues. The first clue is obvious. I have a point. I can plot that on my paper. Negative 1, 3. Again, 1 point is not enough information to decide which line we're talking about. If I just plot 1 point, you could draw horizontal, vertical, diagonals. That's why I'm always giving you 2 clues. So the next clue is right here. X equals 4. X equals 4 is not a point. It is an equation. Equations make pictures of lines. That's what we've talked about in these modules. You should know because it has the letter X, this is going to be a vertical line. So I'm going to draw that again. I'm going to go to the x-axis, to the number 4, plot my point, and draw my vertical line. Now, I haven't answered my question yet. All I've done, detectives, is take the 2 clues and draw a picture of them so I can see what I have. I was given a point. I was given a vertical line. Now, let's answer the question. The question says, write me an equation of a line. And that line must be perpendicular to this. Well, everybody look. If this is a vertical line, what line is perpendicular to it? Remember, perpendicular means they got to intersect at 90 degrees. Do you know what type of line you're going to draw? Very good. You're going to draw a horizontal line. Horizontal lines and vertical lines meet at 90 degrees. But you just can't draw this horizontal line anywhere. The clue says it has to go through the point negative 1, 3. So when you go to draw this horizontal line, it has to go through that point. Now everybody look. I gave you this point. I gave you x equals 4, this line. I said, draw me a line that's perpendicular. Is this line in green perpendicular to the blue line? It sure is. Does this line in green go through that point I gave you? It sure does. Now, here's the problem. They didn't want you to draw the picture. They want you to just write the equation of this new line. So everybody look, what type of line did you just draw? Horizontal. What variable do we use? Very good, we use y equals. What is the y value? Well, let's look. It touches the y-axis at 3. Did we really need to draw the picture? No. Some of you could look at this and do it in your head. You could say, okay, this is an equation. It has an x. That means it's a vertical line. If I'm going to be perpendicular, I must be a horizontal line. To write the equation of a horizontal line, I use the letter y. But then I need a number. Well, everybody look at my point. My y number is 3. So those 4 were relatively simple clues. We talked about looking at clues to write the equations of horizontal and vertical lines. What we have left to do now are the harder ones, the diagonals. Let's go back to the notes. Okay. So in our notes, we've done these first 4 examples. So now we're here. We want to write the equation of a diagonal line. So again, I'm going to give you 2 clues, and you're going to come up with the equation. The problem with diagonal lines is there's not one way to write their equation. There are 3 ways. And we've already discussed this in this whole module. Everything goes in 3s. There's 3 types of lines: horizontal, vertical, and diagonal. There are 3 ways to graph a diagonal line. You could do a t-table, do slope-intercept form, find the intercepts. There were 3 ways to find slope. You can use a picture. You can use the formula. You can use the equation. Well, now we got our last big set of 3. There are 3 ways to write an equation of a diagonal line. The one that you're most familiar with is at the top, slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. The only way you can fill that formula in, that equation in, is if you know the number for m, the slope, and you know the number for b, y-intercept. Well, what happens if I don't give you the slope and y-intercept? Well, then you got to try another formula. The second way to write an equation of a diagonal line is called point-slope form. And that's the next formula. Y minus y sub 1 equals mx minus x sub 1. Now, you will know to use that formula when you're not told the y-intercept. Do you all see there's no letter b there? That means you don't know what the y-intercept is. And that formula is called point-slope for a reason. I will give you as the clues a point and just the slope. But the point I give you will not be the y-intercept. So the biggest problem to do when you write an equation of a diagonal line is to decide between those 2 formulas. Do I use slope-intercept or do I use point-slope? You will use slope-intercept when you know m, the slope, and b, the y-intercept. You will use point-slope when you know m, the slope, but you know another point. And that point I give you is not the y-intercept. Now, the third form is called standard. Standard is not a formula you're going to fill in. What standard means is after you fill in slope-intercept form or you fill in point-slope form, you will then rearrange the pieces, the terms. And in general form or standard form, we want the x and the y on the left and the constant on the right. And then the definition says there cannot be fractions or decimals in standard or general form. You have to have everything be whole numbers. All right, so we're going to go up to the whiteboard. I have 6 examples we're going to walk through. Okay? So let's take our time and go slow. All right. The directions say, write an equation of a line. I want the final answer to look like an equation. It's got to have an equal sign. It's got to have variables, x, y, or both. It's got to have some numbers. Okay? I'm going to give you how many clues? 2. Always 2. So here we go, detectives. Here are your 2 clues. M equals 2, 0, comma, negative 4. Well, you all know that this is obviously a point. So I'm going to go plot it. When I go plot that point, 0, negative 4, do I move right or left? No. X is 0. I just go down 4. Well, what I want you to notice already about that point is where is it located? It is sitting on the y-axis. So this point has a special name. It is your y-intercept. That's your B. We've already discussed what a y-intercept. It's a point on the y-axis, and in algebra we use the letter B to represent it. So we know our y-intercept. Now they gave us this other clue. What does M stand for again? M stands for slope. What does it mean if the slope is 2? Well, if you drew a picture, that would mean from here you would go up 2 to the right 1. Because remember, slope is 2 over 1. Up 2 to the right 1. And if you look very closely, what type of line did we draw? Good, we drew a diagonal line. Now again, the directions are not even asking you to draw a picture. They're asking you to write an equation. Here's the problem. You've got to be able to look at these 2 clues and know it's going to be a diagonal line. If you don't want to take out the graph paper, that's fine. But then you better know, Oh, if slope is a positive number, it means the line goes up. It's got to be diagonal. Once you know it's a diagonal line, then you have a dilemma. There are two formulas you can fill in: slope-intercept, point-slope. Yes, you have to memorize both of them. Now, how do you decide which one to use? Both of them have the word slope in it. Slope-intercept, point-slope. So for both of those formulas, you need the slope. I got that. What makes those formulas different is, listen to the words: slope-intercept, point-slope. Point-slope means I give you a point that is not on the y-axis. Slope-intercept means I give you a point that is on the y-axis. So here we go, guys. I gave you a point. Is that the y-intercept? Well, yes, it is. You just showed me it touches the y-axis. So we would use, to write this equation, slope-intercept form. And that is y equals mx plus b. Now, all you got to do is fill it in. Well, that's easy. Y equals, what's m, everybody? M represents slope. There's the slope, 2. Keep the x. Plus, what's b, everybody? B stands for the y-intercept. What number is your y-intercept? It's right there, -4, because that's where you touch the y-axis. Now, you have the equation, y equals 2x plus -4. Just some technicalities. Are you allowed to write two symbols in front of a number? No, you're not. So what does plus -4 really mean? It just really means the 4 is negative. So we can get rid of the plus. Now everybody look at that equation. Y equals 2x minus 4. Is that not an equation of a diagonal line? Sure it is. You have an x, you have a y. It is a diagonal line. And that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to give the name to this picture. Now this is in slope-intercept form. They are going to ask you to change that then to standard form. Standard form means get the x and the y on the left, put the numbers on the right. So if we put this in standard form, you'd have to take the 2x and move it over to the left. Well, if you take the 2x and move it over, it's going to become negative. The y is on the left already. That's positive. And that equals -4. That would be the equation of that diagonal line in standard form. So everybody look. We put it in slope-intercept form because it was a formula we could fill in. Then we changed it to standard form just to look pretty. Okay? It's just like writing your name. I learned to write it in print, then I learned to write it in script. You say tomato, I say tomato. They mean the same thing. You write 4/8 as a fraction, I write 1/2 as a fraction. They mean the same thing. This equation and this equation are the same equation for that picture. In standard form, they just want the variables together. All right, let's try the next one. So let me erase. All right, if you look, here's our next set of clues, detectives. M equals 2. What type of line is that? Well, we know M stands for slope. And then over here, -3, -4 is a point. So I know I can take a point and always plot it. So let's go plot -3, -4. There's that point in the third quadrant. Knowing that point is not enough to draw a line. Now we know if the slope is 2, what that means. It means from this point we would go up 2 to the right 1. Up 2 to the right 1. And if you connect the points, sure enough it makes a diagonal line. So what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to write the equation of a diagonal line. Here's the problem. You have two choices. Do you use slope-intercept form or do you use point-slope form? Well, both of those formulas have the word slope in them. So it's not going to be the slope that makes the difference. What the difference between those two equations are is listen to the vocabulary. Slope-intercept means you need to know the y-intercept. Everybody look closely. Was this point on the y-axis? Is it the y-intercept? This point's right there. Are you touching the y-axis? No. This is not a y-intercept. We've already discussed this. If this is a y-intercept, the x value should have been 0. So we know this is just a point. this point is not the y-intercept. So then you cannot fill in y equals mx plus b. Because in order to do that, you need to know m, you need to know b. We don't know b. So that's why you have this other formula called point slope. Point slope means you know a point, you know a slope. And that's this. So we're going to write the formula down, which you're going to memorize. Y minus y sub 1 equals mx minus x sub 1. And once you write the formula down, all you got to do is fill it in. This x and y we're going to leave blank because every diagonal line has to have an x and a y in it. See? This diagonal line has an x and a y. This diagonal line has an x and a y. We leave those blank. What we're going to fill in is everything else. So this is y minus, look up here at your clues. Where's your y value? Very good, it's -4. Equals, look at your clues. What's your m value? It's 2. Parentheses, we're going to leave that x minus. In your clues, what's your x value? -3. So all we did was fill in the correct formula. Now, we're going to work it because we got to get this looking like a diagonal line. Well, the first thing, 2 negatives make a what? A positive. 2 negatives make a what? A positive. Now, on the left side, we have y plus 4. And on the right side, this is 2 times this. So don't you think we need to distribute? So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. Oh, looking better. To get it to look like a diagonal line, we want y by itself. So we're going to subtract 4. And we're going to get y equals 2x plus 2. Does that look like an equation of a diagonal line, guys? It sure does. If you look at my picture, it makes sense. We knew the slope was 2. We went up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1, up 2 to the right 1. If you look, that's the y-intercept 2. Am I touching the y-axis at 2? I sure am. Now what they're going to ask you to do is they're not going to want it in only slope-intercept form. They're going to say then change it to standard. Standard just means move the x and y's to one side, the constant to the other. The first one, I moved the x to the left. Okay? You don't have to move the x to the left. You can move the y to the right. It doesn't matter. They just want the x and y on the same side. But I like to move the x to the left, and that means that x would become -2x plus y equals 2. If you moved, instead, the y to the right, you would have 2x. And if you move the y to the right, it would become negative. But then you'd have to move the constant over, and it would become negative. So it doesn't matter which side you move them to, as long as the x and y are together and the constant's by itself to get it in standard form. Okay? So the moral of the story is you're going to have to make a decision. Which formula to use first, point slope or slope intercept? And you base it on the clues. If you know the y-intercept, you just do y equals mx plus b to write the equation of a diagonal line. If you don't know the y-intercept, that's what point slope is for, to fill in to get that. All right, let's step it up a notch. All right, my third example. Again, I'm going to give you 2 clues, but watch what happens. I'm changing them up. My third example says, write an equation of a line given 3, -4, and the origin. All right. We all know what 3, -4 is. It's a point. We'll plot it. 3, -4. What's this clue? What's the origin? Very good. It's also a point. It's 0, 0. And if I connect those 2 points, it's obvious we're talking about a diagonal line. So to write an equation of a diagonal line, you have 2 decisions. Do you have enough information to fill in to slope-intercept? Or do you have information to fill in to point slope? Well, if you look, to fill in to point slope or slope-intercept, you need the slope. Do you guys have the slope up here? Are you told the m value? No, you're not. So now you got to go back to the previous module and think, how can we find the slope? Well, one way to find the slope is to use the formula. Remember the formula? Rise over run, which written in letters is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And you have that information up here. Here's your first y, negative 4, and I'm going to subtract my second y, 0. Then there's my first x, 3, and I'm going to subtract my second x, 0. And when I do my arithmetic, negative 4 minus 0 is negative 4. 3 minus 0 is 3. There's your number for slope. Now, I'm a visual person. To me, why do that formula when you just drew a picture? Can I look at this picture and figure out the slope? Sure I can. Slope is movement from point to point. And when you had to explain to me how to go from here to here, you would say, well, I got to go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I need to move to the right, 1, 2, 3. And that's what this represents. Down 4, that's why it's negative, to the right 3. All right, so now that we got the slope, and to write an equation of a diagonal line, you're always going to have to know the slope. Now the question is, do I do slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b, or do I do point slope? Well, again, guys, here's the decision. If you know where the line touches the y-axis, if you know the y-intercept, then you would use y equals mx plus b. So let's look. Do either one of these points touch the y-axis? Heck yeah, right there. The origin is the y-intercept. So we have the y-intercept. So now all we got to do is fill in y equals mx plus b. So we'll write y equals, you just told me the slope is negative 4/3 x, plus your y-intercept. Where are you touching the y-axis at? 0. What is your y value? 0. That's your equation in slope-intercept form. Now, do we really need to write the plus 0? Good. We do not have to write the plus 0. So what they want to expect you to write for the equation of the diagonal line is y equals 4/3 x. It's still diagonal. It has an x, it has a y. Now, when they ask you next to change it into standard form, we got a problem. In standard form, you cannot have fractions. It's just not allowed. It's the way the rule is. Just like when you write a paragraph, you must start with a capital letter in English class. That's just the rule. So if I ask you to change this equation to standard form, you first have to get rid of the fraction. Well, that's not a big deal. We did that way back when in the first couple of modules. To get rid of the fraction, the opposite of divide by 3 is to multiply by 3. So I'm going to multiply the left side by 3, and I'm going to multiply the right side by 3. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 4/3, well, the 3's are going to cancel and leave you with 4x. Now that the fractions are gone, to put it in standard form, all you got to do is get the variables on the same side. I don't care if you move the x to the left and make it a negative 4x, or if you move the 3y to the right and make it positive. I'm going to move the 3y to the right. So when I move the 3y to the right, I'll have 4x plus 3y. Then there's going to be an equals. Well, if you move it, on that left side is 0. And then I'll just write it correctly. 4x plus 3y equals 0. That equation, 4x plus 3y equals 0, means the same thing as this equation, y equals 4/3 x. They're both the equation of this picture, of this line. Okay, I hope you're with me. We're halfway done. I'm going to try another one. All right, so let's look at our notes and look at our next 2 clues, detectives. All right. The next 2 clues are vocabulary. They say the x-intercept is a half, and the y-intercept is negative 4. All right, so we're going back to definitions. Do we know what those words mean? Sure we do. An x-intercept is where the line will touch the x-axis. So we're going to go to the x-axis, and remember this is a number line. We're going to go to half, which is between 0 and 1. The y-intercept is where you touch the y-axis. So we're going to go to the y-axis to negative 4. Those are points. That's what an intercept is. Like you intercept the football, you touch it. Those are points where you touch the X and Y axis. If you connect them, you will make a diagonal line. So that's what we want to do. We want to write an equation of a diagonal line. Well, to write an equation of a diagonal line, you have a decision. Do I use slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b, or do I use point slope, y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1? Both of those formulas, you need to know slope, the letter m. Do I give you the letter m? I surely do not. So now we got to figure it out. Well, there's two ways to do that. If you're an algebra person, you know this is a point. If it's the x-intercept, it means 1/2, 0. Because if you're sitting on the x-axis, you don't go up or down. This is a y-intercept. It's a point. That's 0, -4. See it? It's at -4 on the y-axis. It didn't move right or left. If you have those 2 points to find the slope, you can do the formula. Rise over run. Subtract the y's, subtract the x's. The first y is 0, subtract. The second y is -4. The first x is 1/2, subtract. The second x is 0. Now we're going to do our arithmetic. 2 negatives make a positive. So this would be 0 plus 4, which is 4. 1/2 minus 0 is 1/2. Now let me ask you a question. Can you leave the slope as 4 over 1/2? Very good. You cannot. A fraction should have a whole number in the numerator and a whole number in the denominator. 4 is a whole number, but 1/2 isn't. So remember, this fraction bar means what operation? It means division. We are going to take 4 and divide it by 1/2. Well, that doesn't make sense in real life. Okay, I can't take 4 people and divide them in half. I would have to cut them. We learned that you never divide fractions. You multiply by the reciprocal. This really means 4 times 2 over 1, which is 8. So we know our slope is going to be the number 8. Now, if you don't like that, you can use your picture. You would say to go from here to here, I would count up 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1/2. There's your up 4, there's your over 1/2. I would have got that right away and then did my arithmetic to get the 8. All right, the slope is 8. So now the question is, to write the equation, do we have enough information to fill in slope-intercept or point slope? I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to do all the diagonal lines using point slope first, that's fine. You'll be doing a lot of work for nothing, but that's fine. You could say, yes, Ms. Black, I have a slope and I have points. I can use point slope, and I will do that for you. Oh, marker doesn't work. Let me get one that works. Y minus y sub 1 equals m, x minus x sub 1. I have slope is 8, and then I need a point, 1 point. So you have 2. It doesn't matter which one you pick. I'm obviously going to pick the one that doesn't have fractions. So I'm going to put the 0 in the place of x. I'm going to put -4 in place of y. And then I'm going to work that out. 2 negatives make a positive, y plus 4. I'm going to distribute. I'm going to get 8x. 8 times 0 is 0. I don't need to write that. And to get this to look like a diagonal line, I'm going to subtract 4. I'm going to get y equals 8x minus 4. That is the equation of a diagonal line. There's nothing wrong with that. You had a slope. You had 2 points. You picked 1. But if you're smart and quick, you will notice, hey, you know what? I found the slope. One of these points is the y-intercept. So why don't I just use the formula y equals mx plus b and fill it in? I know the slope is 8. And my b value is right here. It's -4. We don't write plus -4. We just write y equals 8x minus 4. Now everybody look. Is that the same equation I got using point slope? It sure is. So the moral of the story is, guys and gals, when you write an equation of a diagonal line, you have 2 choices. Slope-intercept form, point slope form. They're both formulas to fill in. the easier one to fill in is slope-intercept. So if you have enough information that you know the slope and the intercept to fill in, you're done writing the equation and no problem. If you don't have enough information because you don't know the y-intercept, then yes, that's when you would use the point slope. But if you don't recognize that you had the y-intercept and you did it the hard way, point slope first, you're going to get the same equation. Everybody's good so far? And then to put either one of these in standard form, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move the x to one side, leave the constant on the other. If you move the x to the left, it would become negative. So we would have negative 8x plus y equals negative 4. If you want to be difficult and you want to move the y to the right, then it would be 8x minus y. But if you move the y to the right, the 4 has got to move over and it would become positive 4. So if you look, it doesn't matter which equation you write in standard form, they're the same equation. They're just with their signs changed, depending on which side you moved the terms to.